Hi, my name is Maggie Bosca, and I'm going to be talking to you today about strays in America, companion animal overpopulation. So first, we will talk about the problem. So who are we talking about? A stray is a person or domestic animal in this case that is wandering at large or is lost. So a domestic animal is also known as a companion animal. So that includes dogs, cats, horses, guinea pigs, that sort. But for this instance, we will be talking about dogs and cats. While the actual number of stray animals roaming America is unknown, it is estimated that for cats alone, it could range up to 70 million. Overpopulation leads to increased health issues and diseases, both with humans and animals, increased violent attacks, this includes stray dogs as seen in Detroit, and psychological distress of the animal. All of these we will touch on later in the presentation. So why should we fix it? The strays that America has today is an issue that humans created and only one that humans can fix. With puppies and kittens being born at a ratio of 7 for every 1 human, it is obvious that there are not enough homes for these animals. But people continue to breed and adopt naively. These animals, who have lived their entire lives in homes, now have to fend for themselves on the streets. As we look more into the studies, we will see that not only do these animals suffer an increased psychological turmoil and lower adoption rate, but they also face an increase of health issues associated with disease that originate from there being an overpopulation of free-roaming animals. But before we jump into the research, I'm going to talk a little bit about integration. Integration seeks to produce new knowledge via the process of integrating multiple disciplines. This allows one to see many sides of a social issue. Instead of using one specified discipline to look at the issue, with integration, this allows you to use multiple disciplines to integrate the knowledge and come up with a sound solution. This is important again because of the complexity of social issues. A social issue, just as strays in America, has many layers. Then this integrative view allows for more in-depth look at the issue and its layers in the hopes of finding a reliable solution. We can see into the issue of strays in America by looking at it with the perspectives of both psychological and biological with an ecological focus. Again, this focus is not separate but integrative. So we will not only be looking at the psychological health of strays, but also the ecological impact and how these two disciplines integrate and interact with one another. The first that we will look at is psychology. Psychology looks at the mind and tries to understand its actions as well as understand the anomalies that come from it. Doing so allows us to see the motives and understand how they relate to his or her actions, human or animal. The epistemology uses discussions and observations to infer psychological constructs of their interrelationships, which can be applied to clinical treatment or a series of experiments. Psychology, like many of the other sciences, uses the scientific method to infer possible causes and giving us the ability to retest those theories. When looking at Dybel's study, he found that cats that are feral have a much harder time getting adopted when compared to cats and kittens who are bred. These feral cats suffered from higher stress levels, and feral cats, who are considered wild, did not socialize with humans well because they are not used to this interaction, only adding to the stress of the animal. Of the 86 cats observed in Dybel's studies, 51% of the cats were determined unsuitable for adoption, with 67% of those being strays. When looking at dogs, Udell found that when dogs are given a monetary task, it showed that these dogs were not as motivated and performed less than those who are homed. Though he also found that with more socialization, the easier time the dog had with learning the task, whether it was a stray or a pre-owned animal. Wells was also able to find that there was a higher percentage of animals who suffered from behavior issues that lived in shelters. These behavior problems and perceptions of disobedience and misunderstandings often leads to an animal being rehomed or abandoned. The most common behavior problems reported to Wells was fearfulness, which was followed by excessive activity and destructiveness. These strays displayed an overall average of 77.8 of behavior issues compared to owner-surrendered dogs at an average of 65.3. Now we will take a look at biology. Biology is the study of living organisms divided into many specialized fields that cover their morphology, physiology, anatomy, behavior, origin, and distribution. Through this approach, we are able to study the distribution of strays through an ecological mindset. Ecology is the branch of biology that deals with the relations of organisms to one another and to their physical surroundings. The epistemology prioritizes experimental methods, stressing the value of classification and observation when obtaining information. And just like psychology, biology utilizes the scientific method, making it easier to obtain and retest if necessary to get a better picture of the overall issue. Where strays are distributed can reveal a lot about the issue and the causes. Whether strays are concentrated around cities can give us this information. This can help to show whether there's a connection of strays in the city centers or if the issue stems out into rural towns. This revealing if there is a connection between human interaction and the number of strays. When Makhanoff looked at the distribution of strays in Russia, he revealed that the overpopulation of owned dogs and their subsequent transition into stray dogs is a primary reason for the increase of the number of stray dogs. In these cities, he also found that there was a rise in the mortality rate with 53% in dogs under the age of 1 year old. He found that this cause of mortality was linked to disease. Invanter found similar results, seeing that these animals depended mainly on the availability of secluded areas to live in and on population control by municipal services. He found that because cities hosted a large number of trash, combined with a large amount of people confined in a smaller area, there was a higher rate of disease. This disease, because of the small area, was not only passed to the animals, but around to other humans as well. This was confirmed by Zuprina, which suggests that strays are a public health and conservation concern because of their potential to transmit diseases, such as rabies, both to people and wildlife. He found that the risk of death in non-vaccinated villages was greater and suggested this caused an increase to the rabies or canine distemper outbreak in those cities. So, how do these two disciplines connect and what are some possible solutions? As shown with the research, an abundance of strays leads to an abundance of unhomed animals. These strays and unhomed animals suffer increased psychological distress and pass diseases. These animals who have this psychological distress also have a harder time finding a home as well as keeping it. This leads the animal either getting sent back or inappropriately released, as in on the streets, and they become strays. This brings us back to the top, only feeding the issue more. The first step we would need to do is to inform the public. This can be through online, television advertisements, and print advertisements. The online would include social media posts and a digital website. This digital website would give information as well as allow people to donate to help the cause. Social media, television, and print ads would help to create connection along with informing the population. These advertisements and online movement would draw its audience to 3 calls of action. The first would be to spay and neuter pets. While this is a known solution, it is very important to do to keep the population level low. The second would be to contact lawmakers to pass laws that benefit animals in the cities. This could include holding owners more accountable, passing laws to better clean up cities, as well as give more assistance to capture and rehabilitate the strays that are already out there. The last call would be to share this message. This would help to increase the rate of information getting to the masses. Hearing information from people you know and trust increases the chances of someone listening and sharing. The next part would be on the shelter's hands. The first step for them would be to hire an animal behaviorist or trainer to be on staff. This person would train and rehabilitate the animals as well as be able to talk to the owners to provide the proper information. This increased effort to train and rehabilitate the animals would not only help to stimulate them mentally, but also provide an incentive to adopting a shelter animal. Better preparing the owners would be important to help and reduce the amount of strays coming back to the shelters or ending up on the streets. Now we will talk about the limitations of the research and the recommendations from this. Because there is not a large amount of research done on America as far as ecological studies go, we do not know exactly if there is a cause and effect to this in America. The population of strays could differ, as well as the reasons for this population to be centered around cities. In the cases of Detroit, we are unsure if this is an isolated instance or if it gives us insight on the rest of the cities in America. Another problem is that there are no current studies done on the proposed solutions. This is because these are new solutions, and there is no data to look at to track whether or not this will work or not. So to fix this, it would be smart to complete ecological studies of major cities around America. This would let us know whether or not this is an isolated instance or if this is a problem throughout the entirety of America. While doing the proposed solutions, it is also important to closely monitor the effects throughout every step. Since we do not know how these will affect animals, we must make sure to closely monitor this in the case that it is more harmful than helpful. Now we will move on to my field experience. For my field experience, I did volunteering for the Humane Society of Macomb. They are located in Utica, Michigan, and provide humane care for unwanted, abused, and injured animals. They not only have a shelter, but they also have a veterinary clinic in the back. They opened in 1967, and while they have held a bad reputation, the new shelter director in 2016 made it his mission to change everything around, now providing a separate area for dogs and cats and music to soothe them. The animals have experienced much less stress compared to 2 years ago. I had 3 roles when volunteering at the shelter. The first one was cat socialization, which was me playing and getting to know the cats, as well as stimulating them mentally. The second was dog socialization, which was the same, but for dogs. I would take the dogs out, as well as play with them. The last was administrative and creative work, which focused mainly on creating bios for the animals. I focused on creating the cat bios because I spent most of my time with them. In doing this, they hoped that having interesting and eye-catching bios, that the animals would have a better chance of getting adopted. With the bios, I tried to create a connection and a personality with the cats. Throughout this entire experience, I was able to see the impacts firsthand of animals being shoved into shelters. In my experience, I also was able to see an animal being brought back because of perceived behavior issues of the cat not getting along with the dog. When I worked with the animal, she was very nice and friendly. It is most likely the case that the dog was high energy and they did not introduce them properly. The Humane Society of Macomb advanced in many ways since their new leadership in 2016. With an animal trainer and staff, they are able to mentally stimulate the animals as well as train some of the longer stays. This training program is important. This training program is important as it increases interactions with the animals and trainers, getting them more comfortable with human interactions. Another thing that I loved that the shelter did was that they emphasized volunteer training. They created a program and ensured that each volunteer was knowledgeable on the animals and the issues that can rise, such as aggression. They ensured that the volunteers knew what they were doing and how to handle every situation that came at them. This training is very important to reduce the amount of accidents. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Thank you and have a wonderful day.